So today I'm going to be installing the Hansshow front lifter on the Model S. I did the Model 3 a few weeks ago. Found it a real help to have a motorised front, really useful. I just think it's going to complement the S. Obviously the Model S comes with a motorised tailgate, so it's not as essential, but I just think it's a good addition. Let's have a look what's in the box. Instructions, as you'd expect. I'll say a lot of this I'll recognise from the Model 3. The motorised struts themselves, which replace the original gas struts. Cable kit and speaker, the beeper. Waterproof boot to cover the control unit. The control unit itself, along with some more wiring. And the latch kit. So this is the bit that pulls the bonnet down. When the bonnet closes, that final little bit, I think they call it a clinch motor. So it's this section here that actually pulls it tight with a replacement or an addition, should I say, an additional catch for emergency release, which is what this is all about. So yeah, a lot of this is very, very recognisable from the Model 3 install, and you should find that on the same YouTube channel. So we did a video about that a few weeks ago. Anyway, let's get out there and get it apart. Okay, so here's my Model S. Conventional front, non-motorised. You just have to lift it up. So what we're going to be doing today is changing these gas struts, which simply dampen and take the weight of the bonnet, with motors that actually lift it. So we need to change or add a release, an automatic motorised release and 2 gas struts, and that is the idea of today. So to start with, let's get all of the plastics off from around the front. Right, so we'll start with removing this. This just is held on, believe it or not, by Velcro and a couple of clips. So you just sort of ease it up and lift it out and move it out of the way. And like I say, there's Velcro and just a couple of clips. Velcro up here, here, and then a section of clips at the back. Okay, the sides of the front, just unscrew these little bump stops. They will come off after a lot of unscrewing. So, and these just lift up and out, again held on with good old Tesla plastic clips. Repeat again for this side, same thing. Okay, next thing is the seal around the front, and if we just lift this up, that will come off. Now, one thing to note with the seal, you've got a mould mark which represents the centre. This line here, this hole here, is the centre, so when you're fitting it back, just line up the line with the centre and it will be in the right place. We now need to take the release button and the light out, and they just literally unclip. 2-pin connector, push the release tab, unclip. And the same with this, 3-pin connector, unclip. The Frunk inner will then lift off completely. Now this is just the carpet section. front trim, just lifts up, and then there is a metal clip at the front. It will pop up, but this one is a metal clip and the others are plastic, so these release easier than this. You just have to give it a little bit, but put your fingers either side of it. Don't just pull from one side. Put your fingers either side and just lift up. We're now going to remove this drain panel. This drain panel is held on with three push studs. I don't know what the correct term for them is. I call them push studs. Classic Tesla clip holes with most of the car together, to be honest. You pull the centre to remove them. You pull the centre up, and then you pull the whole thing out, because what the centre does is splays out the clip. There's three of those, and then the bit to be aware of is there's two pipes either side, here and here. You need to disconnect those pipes, remembering to connect them again when you're putting it all back together. But the clips that hold this whole section on are prone to breaking. I'll show you a picture of those, and just be careful when you're pulling them out. Just ease them ever so slightly. You reach in under here and you ease them out ever so slightly, and they'll come up. And then remove the pipe, this pipe, and the same this side. Reach in ever so slightly, remove the push the clip and ease it up, and remove the pipe. And this section will come out. This is the clip. These break, and when they break, the seal around here isn't made, it's popped up. To remove the air intake to the cabin, you just simply reach both sides and it will lift up and come straight off. This takes air through the HEPA filter and into the cabin. We're now going to remove the frunk liner. Now it looks like there are 12 bolts holding this in, but actually the only bolts you need to undo are these ones along here and here. You do not need to undo these two, this one and these two. These hold the HEPA filter to the back of the front liner, which is where it's mounted. So we've now undone the 8 bolts, not over the top, that hold in the plastic front liner. The ones at the back hold the HEPA filter to the front liner. You don't need to touch them. I'll reinforce that again. There are now 2 clips, little push studs at the front. Now they hold the whole Tesla together. Well, they seem to hold the whole Tesla together. Anything that's not structural on a Tesla is held together by these. You can get your fingernail under them and pull the center. If that's too much, just use a pick to pick the front, the lip up, and just pop it off. Also, very important, this wiring loom has to be pushed away back inside, because you don't want it fouling when we lift the front liner up and out. Next is we're going to remove the latch assembly. Now the latch assembly, before you remove it, take a scribe or a nail and just mark straight across the back as to the height, because this is adjustable. You can probably see I've loosened it. I've already marked mine, but I've loosened one of the bolts, and it is adjustable. Now obviously by adjusting the height of this latch, you adjust the height of the bonnet in its locked position. So that is an adjustment that you want to be putting back. That is a latch you want to be putting back in exactly the same place that it came off. So a scribe straight across the back near this spacer as to how far down it needs to go. Now the best tool to undo it is a ring spanner, because it's an absolute pig to get to. So in here you can access it without any problem with a ring spanner. It's probably a bit too tight for a socket, but you will need to remove it. So I've undone this bolt. I've not taken it out yet because I don't want this spacer to fall into the open gap. So holding the bolt and holding the spacer, I'm pulling the bolt out and lifting the spacer, and I should be able to catch it before it drops. The front latch assembly, we've undone the 2 bolts and removed the 2 spacers, and this area here is the bit that rusts because it's pretty much in the in the rain all the time. So it can give you a few problems. It would be worth giving this a spray with ACF 50 before you put it back together again, and maybe a bit of spray oil up the cables. So the motor that closes the front, feed the cables up through here, and this is where we're going to attach to the latch assembly. Need to remove the spring to replace it with the less powerful spring, because obviously the motor's doing all the work now rather than the spring holding it in. So long nose pliers, just remove this. So we now need to attach the cable release mechanism to the latch assembly, and the way to connect that, first of all, we cut off the small cable tie, which is only there for transit to prevent the bracket being lost. With the spring removed, it's really easy. This little hook here goes in here, swings up so that the holes correspond with each other, and then this goes on to where the spring will be replaced. The next thing is I'll replace the spring. Find the spring, it's in a pocket nice and safe. So safe I can't find it. So the spring that comes with the unit is a little less powerful than the original OEM one, which is what you want. And it simply stretches across to replace where the OEM was. Like that. So that's how it should look when it's all together. So while I've got it off, multi-purpose oil down the cables. Three cables now. And then this stuff, ACF 50. That will help with corrosion, or protecting from corrosion. Literally won't affect anything electrical. Just give the whole thing a good coat. Like that. That'll help stop it rusting. It'll also sort of protect any rust that's already there, so it'll stop that getting any worse. Keeps the moisture off. It dries to a film. It's fantastic stuff. Okay. We now need to mount the release motor, and the cables exit to the right, and it mounts in this hole here. So it mounts in here like this. Ignore this for the moment. And it mounts just there. Now the best way I've found to mount this is using cable ties into these holes. There's a hole just here, just below my finger, my dirty finger now, and there's a hole just here. If you slide a cable tie into those, make sure the cable tie is on the correct side of the wiring, just like this. So make sure it's in between, the cable ties are in between these two cable retainers. And then with the motor, feed these ends through the little holes like so, and then zip tie it up, and it'll hold it there quite nicely. It won't rattle. It's nice and out of the way. It won't foul on the frunk as you're putting the frunk back in, and you won't get that rattle because it'll be held up nice and tight. It doesn't have to be as tight as you can pull it, just nice and snug. Mind a pound for every time a zip tie saved my life. Right, there we go. So now just put that in the right position, and there'll be no, there we go, there's no noises, no rattles. And then this is the emergency release, can be fed down, but we'll come to that next. The excess cable ties, put them in the holes so you don't catch yourself on them if you're ever in here again. If you ever do need to remove this, you can obviously access just here to chop the cable ties to actually take this off. I don't know why you ever want to take it off, but if you ever want to, you can. The backup cable release, the emergency cable release, exits the motor behind those cables, then behind this cable loom, like so, and then down by the brake pipes, and you're aiming for a hole. It doesn't have to hang out of the hole, you just need to be, this needs to be accessible through that hole. So you can see, hopefully you can see the ground, and you don't want it hanging down below the, there we go, like so. And then once in that position, so I can just reach up through that hole and grab it if I needed to. I'm now just going to cable tie it to the loom, just to keep it in that position, stop it falling. So I've secured the emergency cable with a cable tie here and a cable tie here, which is very close to the mounting stud, which carries the weight of the cable, the weight of the main loom here. So it's there is no stress on this loom at all, and all it's doing is guiding this emergency cable down so I can reach up through the hole in the under tray if I ever needed to, but it's also not hanging below the under tray in the way of anything. We just test it, latch this down. This is quite a strong spring, and it should, watch your fingers, and it should latch under here, and then when you pull the release, it should release, which it is. So do that a couple of times just to make sure the action is okay, which it should be, like so. The latch assembly back on is the reverse of taking it off, obviously. Spacer in, holding it tight so I don't drop the spacer, and then, like Harry Houdini, in fact, pass the bolt through and then put the spacer on. It is a bit fiddly, it is doable, but it's not the best of designs. And then spin that up with your fingers and finish it off with a ring spanner, making sure that you put it back in the same place that you took it off, with those marks on the back. That's it. You know what we have? Bonnet latch is back on. If we just press down to latch it in, watching your fingers of course, it is quite stiff, and then just the action on your key to make sure it releases, which it does. So I am quite happy with that. Next step is the removal of the original gas struts and the replacement with the motorised struts. Put that somewhere safe. To remove the struts is quite easy. There's a metal clip. You need a little pick to get under the metal clip. I'm going to take the weight on my shoulder I'm not pushing, I'm just literally taking the weight. Ease the metal clip towards you, and this will just come straight off. You do not need to take the whole metal clip off. And then do the same carefully, because you're near the bonnet. But there, literally, it's just ease it back and it will pop off. So I'm literally just easing that back. I'm not taking that clip off. That will come off. With the wires exiting at the base, putting these on, it's the reverse. Ease the clip back. On we go, and take the pin out. And the same with this. Ease the clip back. Pop it on. Let the clip go to its home position. Again, with a pick, same on this side. Just pop the pick in, ease back until it pops off. And at the top. Wires to the base. Once they're on, the last check is to try and pull it off on both sides without touching the clip. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to. I'm happy with them, they're all locked on. So we should now have everything mounted back as it was. The latch is tested. We've tested it on the key, we've tested it manually, making sure that's okay. The cables exit to the right, go below this panel to the motor. The struts have been replaced with the cables exiting at the bottom. We now need to just bolt these bolts back. The only reason I said to undo these is just to give you a few, probably about a centimetre extra movement, because that is a pain to get to. It's not impossible, it's just a pain. Okay, we're now going to attach the positive terminal. So to get this little cover off, finger under the little red catch, pull towards you slightly, and that will just lift up. So just a finger under there, that'll lift up and out of the way. And we're going to be attaching onto here. So we're going to connect the short positive lead that comes with the kit. Before you do, just make sure in transit that the crimp is not exposed, so make sure the insulation is all the way over, because we're going to be connecting this to the positive terminal, and the last thing we want is this to be dangling around and shorting out, because frame ground is here. Right, let's loosen the terminal, and then we can just slide it under. And tighten it up. Okay. So now this is, even if it touches something, it's not going to matter. And then pop the top back on top of the positive terminal. The cable routing for the left-hand strut is along this silver bar. So with cable ties to keep it in place, just zip tie it. I'll put it right way around, zip tie it into that channel there. Go under there and through there to keep it neat. And I'm going to go under the battery clamp. So exits to the right of the battery again, and the cable tied to keep everything where it should be. Negative terminal to negative of battery, 13mm spanner, loosen the negative and slide under. Oh, is it going to? No, it's not going to slide under, you have to remove it and then replace. That. Okay. So on the latch assembly there's a micro switch which tells the Tesla whether or not the bonnet is open or closed, and this is the plug for it here. The wiring loom for the kit has to know the state of that micro switch, so you are disconnecting the standard Tesla one and reconnecting the wiring loom with the Tesla one going to the controller. So then this loom feeds down and up to where we're going to mount the control box. So the next thing we need to do is we need to be aware of some cable routing. The micro switch on the latch here exits here and then passes behind this member, so that you have these cables here. They head off, they actually can be the other side of that. They head off into the frunk. These head off to the motor. I've already disconnected the original OEM plug to the motor. The motor on the off side is the one that opens the frunk. The motor on the near side is the one that opens the safety catch. Near side and off side is respect to driving in the UK, by the way. It's a UK car, so it might be different in the States, but basically the side on the left, as viewed from the front, is the motor that actually operates the front. That connects in parallel with the loom back to the controller, so that the controller knows the state, open or close, of the frunk. And then we can tidy up the cable in to the original OEM cable points here. This is the original loom that goes to the light and the release button in the frunk, and this is called a debugging plug. Now the idea of a debugging plug is to allow you to test the opener without actually accepting all of the settings, and it also allows you to make changes to the speed and the height, etc. So 3-pin plug into the 3-pin plug, which would normally be where the button goes, and then the button connects to the 3-pin plug that goes off to the controller. Now I'm going to hang that out of the front there, ready to test, ready to set up, but keep it away from the latch assembly because you don't want the latch cutting through the cable. I'm going to connect in the motors, the struts, to the main controller. So you've got the left motor, so this one, sensor and the motor, and then the right strut sensor and motor. Okay, and then the other wiring. We have a to the clinch motor, 2-pin plug to the clinch motor. That's what I was after. The main plug for the signal. This is just the speaker, the buzzer. I was right, didn't want to force it, check twice. And finally, you can connect up the power. So connect the positive. And the power. Okay. So with everything connected up, the next thing to do is to set the stop position of the bonnet and also the speed of the bonnet. And to do that, you press and hold and keep held the Frunk button. It will beep once to acknowledge that the stop position has been set. And to set the stop position, literally you just move the bonnet where you want it into the correct height and press and hold. If you keep it held, it will then move on to the speed, and it will beep 2 beeps, then 3 beeps, then 4 beeps, then 5 beeps, and I think there's actually 6 beeps. But it will beep faster depending on how fast you want the action. So I always set mine on the slowest speed of 2 beeps. So I press and hold. It's all the way up. I'm going to press and hold, keep it held. The height is now set, keeping it held. 2 beeps, that's the speed I want. And then to test with the button hanging out of the front, just simply press once and it should latch all the way down, making sure this cable is away from the mechanism, and should pull all the way down. Now I have deliberately set my latch in the wrong position just to show you, if you've got a raised bonnet here, can see, I don't know if you can see that there's actually quite a big step up because I've lifted the latch as high as it will go, deliberately in the wrong position. When you want to open this in test mode, setup mode, don't press the button, it will set the alarm off. Use the key. So I deliberately set my bonnet to close really high just to show you where the adjustment is, and the adjustment is those 2 bolts that are really easy to get to. You just lower the latch position. That is the stop position of the bonnet. So I'm going to now loosen that off and put it back to the position that I marked originally, so my bonnet finishes in the right position. So I'm happy with the operation. Now it's just a big tidy up. So the control box goes in the rubber boot. Power cable end first. Power cable end in first. So that all the wires exit from the bottom. What amazes me why they never make these things just like 2mm bigger so you have to fight it. Anyway, that is all the way in there, and a cable tie around the bottom. Like so. Off. actually wedges in there. Actually wedges in there quite nicely. I might not need to even do anything to hold that in. The buzzer is double-sided tape, and I can't think of a better place than just there. Again, with the cables exiting from the rear, from the bottom to the base. Put that out of the way. This control unit actually mounts in there pretty sturdy. There's no reason to, I don't see any reason to adjust that. And then just tidy up the cables and put some cable ties around the cable routing. Okay, I'm just going to tidy up the cable run now. Go off into the frunk. I'm following the existing loom and just tying the excess cable back so it flows with it. And then with the excess, neatly tie it back into a bunch, and it can sit next to the control box. Finally, just to run over the cable routing from the motor up follows the loom. Behind this member, the sensor switch, is connected to the controller, and again exits to the offside of the I think they call it a clinch motor. The clinch motor, the cables exit to the near side. Then the wiring follows the existing wiring, cable tied to here, into a big ball of cables, which actually has a dual purpose of stopping the control box from wobbling around too much. It's actually pretty perfect, to be honest, in there. It's not going anywhere. With the Frunk, it can't actually go anywhere. I've just neatened up the routing of the positive terminal and the wiring to the offside strut. The speaker self-adhesive here, and we're now ready to start putting it all back together again. I would give the Latch one last spray of oil and ACF 50. You cannot have too much of that stuff. And then I'm not going to do a video on how to put it all back together, because it's the reverse of taking it all apart. So we've checked all of the cable routing, that's all okay. The front release button is still connected to the debugging cable. We need to disconnect and reconnect to the OEM one, but obviously this needs fitting in the front. This isn't used anymore. This is only used for setting the speed and setting the stop position. So I'll put the front back and disconnect the switch. The debugging tool, now we've set the height and now we've set the speed, we don't need that anymore connected, so we can just disconnect that like so. Now what I've done with this, I've put it back through the lower, or through the grommet hole that's just poked out of the way. I'll have to redo that. I've threaded that back through the grommet hole because I'm just going to tuck that down by the side of the inner liner. So if ever I need to set the height or the speed, all I've got to do is just remove the seal and I can access this again quite easily. I don't have to remove all of the frunk. All complete from the key. Motorised frunk. We can close either from the key or from the button in the front. And integration into the screen. For both open and close.